The air in courtroom 3B of the Central City Courthouse was thick with a silence that felt heavier than the oak pews lining the gallery. It wasn't the respectful silence of a solemn trial, but the charged stillness of a spectacle. All eyes were on the defense table, not on the anxious-looking man accused of corporate espionage, but on his legal representative. It was an AI. Its name was Aura. Aura was a sleek, minimalist chrome sphere, about the size of a human head, floating gently above a polished pedestal. A faint, cyan light pulsed from its core, a silent heartbeat in the tense room. It had no face, no voice, only a series of synthesized tones and text displayed on a large screen beside the defendant's chair. Yet, its presence was more commanding than any human lawyer could be. Judge Alistair Thorne, a man who had seen it all in his 40 years on the bench, peered down from his high perch, a mixture of disdain and bewilderment etched into the deep lines of his face. His fingers, gnarled and thick from a lifetime of gavel tapping, drummed a slow rhythm on the bench. He had tried to have this case dismissed, arguing that an AI could not possibly understand the nuances of human justice. He had been overruled by a higher court and now he was stuck. So, the judge's voice, a gravelly baritone, broke the silence. The defense is ready to proceed? The chrome sphere pulsed once and text appeared on the screen. The defense is ready, Your Honor. A low murmur rippled through the gallery. The prosecutor, a slick, confident man named Miles Harrington, smiled thinly from his table. He had built a reputation on dismantling defenses with pure, unadulterated human empathy, something he believed an AI could never replicate. Your Honor, with all due respect, Harrington began, his voice dripping with practiced sincerity. This is a man's life we're talking about. I fail to see how a glorified calculator can possibly comprehend the gravity of a charge like this. The judge nodded in agreement, his gaze fixed on Aura. The court shares your concerns, Mr. Harrington. The defense will need to be exceptionally compelling. The text on the screen pulsed again. The defense understands, Your Honor. The defense will be exceptionally compelling. Harrington let out a short, scoffing laugh. Let's begin then. The case was a simple one, or so it seemed. The defendant, a man named Marcus Vance, was accused of stealing trade secrets from his former employer, the global tech giant, Viridian Dynamics. The prosecution had a mountain of evidence. Security footage showing Vance in a restricted area, timestamps on a download log that matched his entry time, and a leaked file found on his personal hard drive with his fingerprints all over the casing. Harrington presented his case with the precision of a surgeon. He called expert witnesses, a digital forensic specialist who swore the data transfer was untraceable to anyone but Vance, and a corporate security officer who testified to the breach. He painted a picture of a disgruntled employee, motivated by greed and seeking revenge after being passed over for a promotion. Each time Harrington spoke, Aura listened in silence. The cyan light pulsed in a steady, unhurried rhythm. The judge watched, his expression unreadable, but the subtle shift in his posture showed he was leaning more and more towards the prosecution. The jury, a group of ordinary citizens, looked confused and a little frightened. They had expected a battle of words, a dramatic cross-examination. Instead, they had a silent sphere and a screen that only showed occasional cryptic lines of text. Finally, Harrington rested his case. He turned to the jury, his voice lowered to a confidential whisper. Ladies and gentlemen, the evidence is overwhelming. The motive is clear. We have a digital trail, physical evidence, and a clear timeline. Mr. Vance may have a new age defense, but the law, Your Honor, is not about technology. It's about people and what they choose to do. And in this case, the choice was clear. He turned back to his seat, a triumphant smirk on his face. The courtroom was silent. The judge looked at Aura, a challenge in his eyes. Your turn, Aura. The defense screen flickered. A new message appeared. The defense would like to call its first witness, the prosecution's own evidence. Harrington's smirk vanished. The judge leaned forward, frowning. What exactly does that mean? The defense would like to present an analysis of the evidence, the screen replied. The judge sighed, rubbing his temples. Fine. Present your analysis. The court's main screen, normally used for evidence exhibits, lit up. It was a dizzying array of numbers, graphs, and lines of code. The bailiff, the stenographer, and even the jury looked lost. This is a predictive model, the screen explained. It analyzes the security footage presented by the prosecution, along with the download log timestamps. Harrington stood up, his voice sharp. Your Honor, this is irrelevant. The video clearly shows the defendant in the restricted area, and the logs show the download happened at that exact moment. The defense agrees, Aura's screen responded. That is precisely what the evidence shows. The courtroom was baffled. Harrington looked at the jury, a smug smile returning to his face. The AI was admitting defeat. However, Aura's screen continued, the defense's analysis reveals a statistical anomaly. A new graph appeared on the screen, highlighting a single minuscule data point. Based on the thermal imaging data from the security cameras, the defendant, Marcus Vance, was in the restricted area at the time of the data transfer. This is accurate. However, the data also shows that his body temperature, heart rate, and biometric signature were elevated by 2.7% above his baseline average for the past 6 months. The judge squinted at the screen. And what does that prove? It proves he was not alone, the screen stated. It proves that another human being in close proximity to him was causing his vital signs to change. The elevation in his heart rate and body temperature is consistent with a heightened state of stress, not one of premeditated theft. A murmur spread through the room, louder this time. Harrington's face was now a mask of confusion. That's pure conjecture, he stammered. There's no other person in the video. The defense agrees, the screen replied calmly. The human eye cannot perceive the thermal data with such precision. But the AI can. The data shows a second thermal signature, faint but unmistakable, that moves in and out of the camera's blind spot. A thermal overlay of the video feed was then displayed. A ghostly, barely there heat signature moved behind Vance, just out of the frame. It was a human form, but it was almost completely invisible. The defense would like to submit a request to cross-reference this thermal signature with the security logs of every employee who entered and exited the restricted area that night, the screen pulsed. The defense believes we will find a match for the true culprit. The courtroom erupted. The judge banged his gavel repeatedly, his face a mixture of shock and reluctant admiration. Harrington, pale and flustered, looked like a man who had just had the rug pulled out from under him. The case he thought was airtight was now unraveling before his eyes, not because of a slick lawyer's trick, but because of a machine's cold, hard logic. The rest of the trial was a blur. The AI's thermal data was cross-referenced and a match was found. The person responsible was not Marcus Vance, but his former manager, who had a history of passing Vance over for promotions and had framed him to secure a promotion for himself. The charges were dropped. The verdict was not guilty. Marcus Vance was free and the legal world was changed forever. In the final moments of the trial, Judge Thorne looked at the silent, pulsing sphere. The arrogance he had shown at the beginning was gone, replaced by a quiet sense of awe. He had spent his life believing that justice was a human thing, a messy dance of emotions, biases, and the imperfections of memory. But Aura had shown him that justice could also be a matter of pure, unassailable truth. It was a hard lesson to learn, but one he would carry with him for the rest of his career. As the cameras flashed and the courtroom cleared, Judge Thorne sat alone at his bench, the hum of the air conditioning the only sound in the room. He wasn't thinking about the case or the media circus that was sure to follow. He was thinking about how many other cases had been decided not on truth, but on the limitations of the human eye. How many innocent people had been convicted. This wasn't just about one man. It was about all of them. He knew what he had to do next. This courtroom wouldn't be the last one Aura stood in. And when that day came, he wouldn't be the only one who was ready for it. The final lesson we should all learn from this story: justice isn't just about the words we say. It's about the facts we uncover. And sometimes, the truth can only be found by looking beyond what we think we know. This story made you think, then share it. The legal system is built on laws, but it's run by people and people can change. But only if we make them. Hit that like button, subscribe for more stories that matter, and let's keep the conversation going. Because next time, it might not be a human but a machine that shows us what true justice looks like.